Good morning. Taylor Hemness here with another edition of Faith in KC, our first in a couple of months. Glad to be back with you here talking about a faith tradition in Kansas City that we've not featured yet on more than a year and a half of doing Faith in KC episodes, and that's Hinduism. How many times have you maybe seen a flyer like this with a bunch of words that you have no idea what they mean in your community and not really known what this is about? This is a flyer about a festival going on this weekend from the Hindu Temple and Cultural Center of Kansas City. That's in on Lackman Road in Shawnee. And if you take a look at it, it's intimidating. If you are not familiar, like I am not familiar with most of what's being described here, but it's an opportunity that you can go to this weekend to learn more about exactly what Hinduism is. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about exactly what that faith entails because it's foreign to me. As we've talked about quite a few times on these episodes, and I'll talk about in this one, I was raised like many of you were in a Christian community, Protestant community that I don't think I knew the first time that I met someone who identified as a Hindu. So today I'm talking to Dr. Deb Badari. He is a representative of the Hindu Temple and Cultural Center of Kansas City. And I will let you know up front, Dr. Deb was having some technical difficulties with his computer, so he shot his interview on his phone. So I apologize for some of that you'll see here, but he's so forthcoming and interesting with what he shares about Hinduism and what we can learn. And I know in 25, 30 minutes is just scratching the surface of one of the world's oldest religions. But I enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you will too. As always, you can find more of these Faith in KC episodes on our website, KSHB.com, where you can reach out to me. Email taylor.hemness@kshb.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and let me know some questions that you have, some thoughts that you may have about this episode, or some episodes I can do in the future. For now, enjoy this latest one. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Faith in KC. I'm Taylor Hemness here. Excited to talk to you for the first time in a couple of months and to talk about a faith tradition we have not featured yet on Faith in KC in more than a year of doing these episodes, and that's Hinduism. I'm glad to be joined today by Dr. Deb Badari. He's representing the Hindu Temple and Cultural Center of Kansas City. Dr. Badari, Deb, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you chatting with me.
Thank you.
So obviously we talked about a little bit before we started recording that it's difficult to describe Hinduism or any faith tradition to anybody that's not familiar with it. First, let me ask you this. What would you say the population of people in Kansas City that practice Hinduism or had that faith tradition, is it a large number of people? Are there a lot of Hindus in Kansas City?
No, Kansas City and suburb, I think there are few thousand Hindu people, Hindu faith people around this city. Yeah.
Yeah. What about different places to worship in Kansas City? Are there multiple places for Hindus to be able to worship? Because obviously there's different sects of Hinduism. Are there multiple places, or are there not a lot of options when it comes to where Hindus can worship?
Let me tell you that about our faith, and worshiping in a temple is not a must. Every Hindu can have a little corner in his or her home where one can worship. So that is one thing. And second, in the Kansas City, only place to worship is our Hindu temple. But in this country, there are many bigger towns where there are a number of temples which are very big, and many thousands of people they get together there and perform their services.
So what are some of the basic tenets of, we've got a lot of people that are going to be watching this that aren't familiar with Hinduism at all. What are some of the basics of your faith tradition that you would want people, especially people not familiar with Hinduism, to know?
Okay, first of all, you see that there are some features which are different in Hindus. Like, as I said, that when we meet another person, we put our hands together and say namaste, means greeting, as opposed to handshake, which is more common in this country. And then there is a special dress codes also for the genuine Hindus. Hindus, especially Hindu ladies, they wear shari in many places. And the Hindu men also have a different kind of clothes called dhoti. But those are mostly common in India. Here, most people wear the conventional dress here. And one other feature of Hindu women, especially who are married, you'll see a red dot in their forehead, and that is called bindi. So that is another thing that you will see in many Hindu ladies, especially the older ladies. We have major festivals, and in those, many people participate, irrespective of their religion and faith. For example, one of the main festival is called Diwali, or Festival of Light, where all the houses are lit up in the evening, and there are other events that goes with that, and that happens in the winter, mostly in November, December month. So that is one, and there is another festival called Holi, or the Festival of Color, and that happens in the spring when the new plants and trees and leaves they bloom in spring. There is a festival of color where people play with the color, and they actually throw color on each other and sing and dances. And this is something very enjoyable to many people. And in Hindu temple here, on that day, you will see as much as 500,000 people. They are celebrating outside in the open and playing with the colors. So, and that is a symbol of goodwill exchange also. So these are the two most prominent festivals of Hindus. Hindus worship many deities. We have deities which has a humanoid form. And if you go to the temple, then you will see various deities. For example, Rama is a very common name, and it's a historical character. Rama and his brother Lakshman and his wife called Sita. And in any Hindu temple you go, you'll see their statues there. And similarly, there are other deities called Vishnu or Krishna. Based on Krishna, there is a group of faith believers called Hare Krishna people, and they have their own society, and they also originate from Hinduism, but it's more specialized in certain aspect of Hinduism.
Deb, let me ask you, and also Deb, can you tilt your camera down a little bit? I'm seeing more of your ceiling. There you okay. Are. Perfect. Let me ask you about, because the festivals are interesting to me. Obviously, a gathering situation, and something else that you mentioned about Hindus being able to worship and observe in their own home as much as a temple necessary. You know, I'm a Christian, so I go to regular worship services on a regularly scheduled basis. But that doesn't sound like something that you're describing as much necessarily. Are regular scheduled gatherings not necessarily as much a part of the Hindu faith?
In Hindu temple, there is special services on Sundays and Saturdays, and that starts say at 11 o'clock, and they do what is called arti. Arti means take some candle or some other lights and just show the deities and go around, and people participate and also chant some scriptures. And along with that, they ring some bells and other percussion instruments to make that program very devotional. So that happens every Sunday and every day actually, but Sunday is a very special. In the evening, the gods are given also those arati, and many people also participate in that. So these are some of the conventional services.
You mentioned the number of Hindu in Kansas City, the people that recognize Hindu in the Kansas City area. Is that primarily made up of people who are born in another country and have moved here, or are there people born and raised in the United States that take part in Hinduism and observe? What's that breakdown like?
Well, the people of Hindu origin, they have their children here. They also participate, and there are other Hindus and some of the Americans who have also taken Hinduism, or they're interested in Hinduism, so they can participate because our faith is very open. You can come and join us. It does not mean that we have to proselytize to Hinduism. We don't believe in converting from one religion to another, and that's actually a no thing, because we believe that all faith of this world, they are equally great, and changing one faith to another by choice is okay, but by any other obligation, it's a lateral movement. It's not a upward movement. So we aspire for moving to divinity, and that's why we encourage people to come and pray with us and get a glimpse of our faith.
That's interesting, because I think obviously if I were to explain again my faith tradition, Christianity, to someone who's not familiar with it, I think I would probably say something along the lines of, it's an important tenet of Christianity to go and tell other people about your faith and try and encourage other people to convert, for lack of a better word, to what you're doing. I think that's a pretty important tenet of my faith tradition. There's obviously, we have large missionaries, that groups that go all around the world, that kind of thing. I think it's interesting the way you hear it described, that there as a lateral move. I've never heard it described that way, from one religion to another. I think that's interesting, and kind of not a different way of thinking, but maybe that is a different way of looking at the way you worship and what your relationship with the Almighty may be. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, sure. So to give you some more deeper background, that the only one reality called God, actually in Hinduism, is called Brahman, Brahman. Brahman is not a physical thing, and Brahman is a concept, or Brahman is a super consciousness, and we consider Brahman is omniscient and omnipotent, and it's all over the place. It's a reality, super consciousness. And so that is so vast that human mind cannot imagine them in a finite form. So what they do, they have come up with deities, which are some special power of this Brahman. For example, Shiva is one of the deities, which is also a special aspect of Brahman, and people worship Shiva. And Krishna is another deity, which also has a historical perspective in the long past. And there are some historical incidents which signify the love of God for Hindu, and so there are other deities, many deities actually. There are thousands of deities, because Hinduism is a very old religion, and also it was practiced in a vast country like India. From north to south, east to west, there are a lot of diversity. So people consider the supreme God or Brahman in their own way. And so that's how the distinction happens from one part to the other.
I have to admit, I was embarrassed coming into this conversation about how little I know about Hinduism. And to your point about how long it has been one of the most observed faiths in the world, how many millions and billions of people over the course of history have been Hindus, and I don't know a whole lot about it. That's I guess hubris on my part, or naivete on my part of not understanding. So my question on that is, how would you say the awareness level of someone else like me in Kansas City, people who are raised in America or raised in a Christian faith tradition, that kind of thing, the awareness of what Hinduism is and who Hindus are, what's the awareness like with people who are not of your faith tradition?
Okay, so going to the deeper questions, let me tell you that we can bridge with Christianity very well, because in Hinduism, it says that the Almighty God is actually in our heart. So you can find him there. You don't have to go to the temple if you are really devoted. So I know that Jesus Christ also said that the kingdom of heaven is in your heart. And so there is a lot of parallels. And when you go to the upper level of conceptualizing God, actually it boils down to raising the human mind to a higher level where they can see the unity in all. And that unity is actually Brahman.
When you mentioned earlier at the very beginning of our conversation, you talked about the festivals and the dress and the physical aspects that might characterize someone as a Hindu. If I were to engage you or see you out celebrating and being part of the festivals, that kind of thing, what is that engagement like locally in Kansas City when people, have you had good experiences if you are dressed in something that signifies your faith, or you're coming from a festival and you may go out to dinner or something like that? Have you had good experiences or bad? What's the experience like when you bump into people who realize that maybe you think something a little bit differently than they do?
That can be sometimes scary, but generally, my experience in this country after living here close to 50 years, that they are very adaptable. They are very, they can accept a lot of diversity. And so I have not faced any problem so far, but naturally, in a very crowded restaurant, I would not dress up in my outfit and go there. And so that is something I don't feel very comfortable with that. So.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but that's, I think that because I know that if you were to come in to a restaurant where I was sitting with my family, I know that my children would likely ask a question, probably. Dad, why is that man dressed the way he's dressed? And I was curious about what those interactions would be like. Another thing I'm curious about is young people in Hinduism, in your faith tradition, because obviously that's something that I think a member of any faith tradition wants to pass on what their faith is and what their religion is to younger people, especially their children, but other people, so the faith tradition continues. What's it like for young people in Kansas City? Are there a lot of younger people in KC that practice Hinduism? I'm sure they're members of your family. What's it like to be a 18-year-old Hindu in Kansas City?
Well, to be honest, the new generation, means our children, they have not gotten that much of background in our culture. And so they adopted the local culture and local outfit and everything. And many families, they actually take the children with them to the festivals and the temples. That way they can get more exposure, but not necessarily everybody does that. And for example, I let my children go on their own way to learn what is good for them. And sometimes I tell them, what is my background on this and that. I hope that in some time when they have a genuine interest, they will definitely go and find their roots. So that is my philosophy. Not necessarily everybody has the same kind of thinking.
I think that's a philosophy that would be pretty familiar to a lot of parents on a lot of things, not just religion. Here's what I think. Go out and do what you need to do. But I hope you'll follow me what I'm discussing with you, because I've lived a long life and I've been around and I know what's going on. I also want to ask you, we're recording this on the morning of May the 12th because we're going to put it on the air this weekend, because I understand there's a large event going on this weekend at the Hindu Temple and Cultural Center of KC. Can you tell me more about what's going on?
Okay, there is a major festival in this time, and it is again, it's a worshipping of the deity called Brahmo, and the festival is about this Brahmo. That's why it is called Brahmotsav. Brahmo plus Utsav. Utsav means festival, and so in this they celebrate the supreme God Brahman. And since Brahman actually has no form, no shape, nothing, as I told you, but he is omniscient and omnipotent, they imagine in form of some human figures, and we call them deity. So they will have the deity of Brahma and some other gods, and formally they will be carried on a chariot and given a procession so people can participate, and then bring there and do some worshiping. And along with that, they will hoist a flag in front of the temple that also signifies the new building of the temple which is being built. It is a formally opening that in the name of Brahman, which is our most sacred deity that they will create in the temple. Very colorful decorations and many fanfares and festivals. Means there will be food distributed to people, and they will worship in front of a fire. Fire ritual is one of the main ritual that happens, where they offer various things to God in the fire, and it is just believed that the God fire will take that to heaven, which is the abode of gods, and give them all those things that you are offering, and then you will get blessings out of that. So this is the main principle.
It sounds amazing. It sounds like there's going to be, hopefully you'll get good weather for it and a lot of turnout, because it's a weekend long event, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me coming back to this topic, but I can't help it because I think it's very, very interesting. And the idea of the juxtaposition of, yes, this is an incredibly old, incredibly highly observed faith tradition, but here in this part of the world, one that's something maybe a lot of people don't understand a lot about. And I'm curious if, as someone who practices Hinduism, as a Hindu yourself, is it, the word I keep coming back to is lonely, but maybe that's not the right word. But what's the feeling like of, because I don't feel any pressure to do something different with my faith tradition, because there's a church on every corner in Kansas City, a Christian church on every corner. So it doesn't feel odd to me to go to church on Sundays or Wednesdays or whenever I go. Is it a solitary feeling to be a Hindu in this part of the world, or is it more inclusive with other Hindus around you? What's your observation about what it's like to be a member of a faith tradition that people don't know necessarily a whole lot about and where you live?
No, you are talking about some kind of a lonely feeling mentally. Now that is a psychological thing, but everybody at some point they want to realize their distinct existence in this world, And so that's why they will follow their own tradition, sometimes, and dress up in certain things, a certain way, and also go to a place where they can see some other believers get together, and that way it becomes some kind of congregation uh, in that event. So that gives bigger sense of existence for any individual, and so that's a psychological thing. But outside that, as you said, that we believe that all men are created equal and everybody has that Brahman in their heart. So if you go deep in mind, there is no need for, there is no scope for being isolated individual in this world. So that is my way of thinking. I'm not going to tell others how to think.
No, I like that. I think that's I think that's a great answer, honestly. And I hope you don't mind my asking, but I've never had to think like that. And I consider myself a lucky guy that I've never had to worry about is my religion uncomfortable for someone else or anything like that. I'm in a situation where I'm in a dominant faith tradition in America and I don't have to worry about that. But I appreciate your answer and your honesty on that. If someone, back to the festival this weekend, if someone watching this would like to learn more about Hindus and Hinduism in Kansas City, is this weekend's festival a good way to do that if they would like to learn more?
Just to see visually, one can see that the program goes on and all those things, but nobody will explain there what is this and what is that. So for that, you have to ask people like me who can explain, because it has become so diverse, this Hinduism, and it is so old. Even the Hindus, they themselves don't know all the details of why we are doing this and why all those things, but they follow certain practices, which is also a good thing.
Yeah, it strikes me there's a lot of things that, why do you do this? Well, that's just kind of how we've always done it. Like there's some things that I do that I don't really know why I do it, but that's how my dad did it and how I did it growing up, and that's just how we're going to do it. So I don't think that's unique to any background at all. Dr. Deb, I appreciate your time. I know you've got a busy schedule. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Anything else you'd like to say about Hinduism before we go?
No, as I didn't complete when I was going to tell you about the background, that Hindu civilization started much, much earlier, 5,000 years or more than that. And it all started in the subcontinent India, in the northwestern part of India. That's where there was a river called Saraswati, and on the river bank, these people started the life, and they started agriculture, and they had all the knowledge about the society and all those things. And that's where they also created a unique set of scriptures called Vedas. So Vedas is the origin of Hinduism. And Vedas is full of scripture. There are 10,000 scriptures in that, and written in a language, a very ancient language called Sanskrit. And you'll be surprised to know that a lot of languages that we use these days, they actually evolved from Sanskrit. And there are many parallels also, like Latin has many parallels to Sanskrit. And some of the English words actually came from the Sanskrit words. Just to give you example, that fire is a very sacred god in the Vedic civilization. And name of the fire is called Agni. And from Agni came the word Agnis. And later it became ignition. So that's how it evolved. So the Vedic culture, they created some of the unique scriptures and philosophy called Upanishads. And some of the Upanishads are so deep in human thoughts that here also there are a lot of uh, seminars and talks and discussions about some of the intricate truths that they have discussed about the human life and also the world, existence of the world. So that is called Upanishads. So that's what I wanted to tell you.
Well, it sounds like at the very least, it would be worth someone's time to maybe learn about some of the things that they don't even realize come from the Hinduism tradition, even words they say or things that they do that maybe they don't realize comes from Hinduism. I think that would at the very least be worth someone's time. I know it'd be worth my time to learn more about that. Dr. Bhandari, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your candor, and I hope you don't mind some of my questions, but I think it was a great conversation. I hope you have a great turnout this weekend at the festival. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed your questions. So anytime you have other query or some other people want to know, they are welcome to contact us at the Hindu temple, and I'll be glad to, do whatever I can.